Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. All right, tell me about a time or a moment maybe that you didn't get the balance right, and what did you learn from that? Maybe a moment.
I got plenty of those,
I
but
was gonna say, I'm like, let me check the archives real quick.
yeah, my most recent one. So I left W-2 work in 2022, and I was the deputy commander for all child exploitation operations in the Pacific Ocean. And I was 2 years of burnout in a hellhole of PTSD and anxiety and all the craziness.
Wow.
But at the same time, it was such a gift because I knew inherently, I was like, I gave too much of myself. I knew better and I did it anyway. And so it's just been an opportunity to build in those new wellness mindsets so that that doesn't happen again, because it's never going to happen again. Because I don't want to be out of the fight, right? That's the goal, is you don't ever want to be out of the fight. So
Yeah. So real quick on that, you mentioned wellness mindsets. And so when people that aren't in that realm, don't operate in those high stakes, high pressure environments like you have, Alani, I think there's an assumption that because you're exposed to those things, that you have some special training or you have some mind power and control over how you switch gears so quickly. So what would you say to somebody that's watching, and the most pressure they've ever been under is working a 60-hour work week and trying to feed two kids at home, right? But they're burned out too. And so your burnout's not better than theirs necessarily. It's just how they're experiencing it. When you say the mental wellness or those types of things, what would you say?
So you're right. Comparison is the thief of joy, and everybody's built differently. Everybody has a different capacity to carry different things. Parents, I think, have some of the hardest jobs. Social workers, medical professionals, I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm mad respect. I could never do what you do, right? But when I talk about being deployed and getting shot at and bombed, people are like, that's crazy. But I was built for that. Like, that part doesn't freak me out, right? But ultimately, I think what you're saying is know yourself, right? So I always think of Bill Belichick. Like, I mean, I think we know Tom Brady was the man, right? But Bill's big contribution to the Patriots was do your job. And that means knowing what your purpose is and only doing that every day. So part of the burnout comes from trying to do all these other things that you're really not called to do. So the more awareness that you have around what is my gift to the world and what I give today is enough. That's what I would say to somebody who's just starting on this journey. Like, what's your purpose? And most people don't know, right? What's your purpose? And what is one tiny way I can just align myself to that? And hint, hint, it's going to be scary, because most people are doing what the world tells them to do, not what's really in their hearts. So if you feel that fear, but you're like, oh my God, that could be amazing, you're right on track.
Yeah. What they say, if it excites you and scares the crap out of you, you got to do it.
That's right.
Love it. Casey, what would you add?
I would say, and I think this is probably pretty unusual, I have not had a lot of overwhelmed moments in my career. I have always been very careful to, I'm an artist, so I take the time every week to sit in front of my easel or my craft table or whatever I'm working on and just take that time that I need. I shut off all music, all TV, all news, I shut off everything and I focus on my art. So
I love that. So where do you think that level of discipline just kind of was integrated into who you are?
um childhood. I
Yeah.
really do think it is my mom was a freelance sign language interpreter. And
Huh.
so she handled her own schedule. And she was always very careful to make sure that she set aside time for us, set aside time for us to do fun things together, set aside time for us to do chores and those
Mm.
sorts of things. So it was very rigorous, but very regimented.
Yeah. So the structure in a lot of ways sounds like it helped you and you kind of knew when you could check in and check out.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
fantastic. Kelsey, what would you add?
Yeah, for sure. My kids came home with one of those signs, like, for Mother's Day. And they said, my mom's favorite thing to say is, and they said, hurry up, it's time to go. So I don't think I provided my children with the same structure that you provided your children with, but I am working on it because burnout is something, it's something very real. I'm a hyperachiever, I'm a hyper driver. So are most of my clients. So are all of my clients. So burnout is very, very, very real. And the stories that we tell ourselves about what it takes to be successful, how much we have to take on, is a daily conversation that I have. So I'll just say a couple of things, which is one, thinking about asking others for help versus empowering others with opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. Most of us are givers. That's why we're hyperachievers. We want to do more. And the assumption that we can do more for others instead of helping them do more is a fundamental shift that all of a sudden we are both giving and we're empowering somebody else to do something that they couldn't do without our support. And so I think that's kind of been an important framework for a lot of my clients that really resonates. Alani, you talked about strengths, like knowing your strengths. So I think, part of us that tend to gravitate towards burnout, knowing what our strengths are and how to leverage those in those moments. So how do I take this hyperdriver personality of mine and put it to good use? It can sabotage me or it can help me if purposed, and if pointed in the right direction. And so I think really tapping into whatever our strengths are, looking at whatever it is that we're struggling with and saying, how might I use this as a strength? What do I know about myself that I can tap into? Each individual is different. The reasons we're hyperdrivers, hyperachievers, prone to burnout is distinct. It's unique. It's individual to us, which also means the solution is unique and individual to us. But it's that awareness, it's the conversations, and it's about sometimes looking at things that we see as a challenge as the opportunity. Where's the gift?
Yeah. Yeah. So good. I think anytime the conversation around burnout comes up, we kind of always jump back into the example on the airplane, right? When the oxygen mask drops, there's a reason they tell you to put it on yourself first. And we don't always apply that to life. And I was actually we've been doing a couple of special episodes of inspired actions for Christian education. And one of the young men was talking about how leadership isn't about pouring from one cup to another. If you really think about it, it's about pouring from one cup to a pipe system that then feeds other cups. And so since we know we can't pour from an empty cup, if we take that on and say, we've got to keep our cup full because we're not just feeding the one cup that we think we're pouring into, it's got to flow through to a lot of other people, right?
Yeah, that's so good. Kyle, can I offer an unpopular opinion?
Yeah, sure.
So I love this conversation. And, but earlier we were actually talking about the Texas floods, and that is an awful tragedy. And to Kelsey's point, people are givers. Like they want to give and give and give, right? But for me, I know that my purpose is in protecting and uplifting life as it relates to the justice system, even though my well-intendedness wants to go help the Texas flood survivors in that whole situation. That's not what I'm called to, right? And so, people might look at me and think I'm a bad person for saying that, but the point is, I understand the boundaries I have around what I'm here to do. And there's someone else that is a flood specialist who they're unleashing their greatest gifts on that space, right? But the point is, if we all know our role and offer that gift up to the community, we cover each other's weaknesses with our strengths and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's having the confidence to stand in those boundaries. And I think a lot of times that's where we see resistance from other people because they may not have the same ability to do that. Yeah. I appreciate you offering that. All right, ladies. Great stuff. Thank y'all so much. That's all the time we've got for this episode. Be sure to join us every Thursday on LinkedIn, noon Central, and then anytime on the @MindFit Coaching YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in for a new episode every week. Thanks, you guys. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.